No.
Yeah, technology. I guess we went over our time, but I actually was just saying that, you know, I personally feel in terms of shifts, something that I've been thinking around, the idea about what I want personally. So I believe that when you have this revolution within, you pass it on in these small ways, right? But I know that artists, especially when you put yourself out there to be vulnerable, but you sort of impact so many people. And I had actually just shown the magazine because I said that. So the impact of seeing this cover, there was no other cover for me, right? Not only as a Black woman, but this idea that it's important for all of our stories that we're not a monolith, right? And that in our human stories, right? Because I even shared with you, you know, I didn't understand some of the specifics around being white, because if you're born in America, everyone that's white is rich.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the perception. So until I actually traveled this country and then this world, didn't understand how different that is as a young girl. And then I can understand then why people have this idea about Black people. I've gone to Alaska and people ask me, like, did I know Michael Jordan? Could they see me, right? Could they see me dance? You know, right? They want to touch my hair.
Yeah, like, yo, I remember my second to last night in New York before I moved to London. I was with my OG, Dre, Big East, and we were with three Black girls, his girlfriend at the time, maybe his girlfriend still now, and two other Black females. And we went, and then we were with, we were in my old neighborhood. I lived in Greenpoint. So he came and met me at my place, and we went to this karaoke. It was a real hipster karaoke bar in Greenpoint. They had a piano playing songs live. So people were singing, and when we got up to sing, everyone was like, "Oh, snap!" Because there's three Black girls. They definitely could sing like Aretha Franklin, can't they? They couldn't sing for shit. But the thing was, that was the perception that we can sing. And that's the monolithic thought around Black people: sing, dance, and shoot basketballs.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, it's so deep that it's so prevalent. Like, that's what I'm saying about the dehumanization. Like, that's dehumanizing for someone actually if you know Michael Jordan. You know? And if you tell them that, they'll be like, "Oh, you're being so extreme." It's dehumanizing.
Yeah.
It's dehumanizing. It is dehumanizing.
It also speaks to this idea of very now. I mean, I have to check myself. I am not a yogi, but I have all these yogis and people in my life that have this idea of me, because I am a thinking, you know, a therapist.
Yeah.
I don't love that. I know I feel like I should love yoga, right? But I like boxing. It feels like it's antithetical, right? It's the opposite. But really, it's movement, and movement is key. Like mind, body, spirit. Now, that was one of the last things I wanted to talk about, and I was going to ask you, what do you do to connecting your mind, body, and spirit so that consistently you can feel that connection? Because I think that that's what fuels creativity and art, and really your humanity is this idea.
Yeah. What do I do physically? I don't know if this counts.
I know.
I'm always on the go. Like, for me, that fuels me. Like, just always going around, catching up with people. Like, you know, let's say in LA, one of my favorite things to do is go to Arcana Books and just look through the books and talk to my friend Lee and his amazing staff there. You know, catch up with ASAP, Brock, just run around LA and do stuff and run around the world. You know, it's come at a cost though, because I run myself ragged. So there's definitely some I need to start employing healthier modes of physicality other than just traveling around the world constantly and on flights and always, you know, running around.
But what that says to me, right, is that you're fueled by people and by connection. And part of one of the things I said is there's not one way to heal. So therapy is one modality of things to do. And actually, I believe that yoga through breathing and really in a lot of ways is being connected to yourself. But you seem to connect to people, even in looking
Hi,
through your.
Lulu. Sorry, I didn't say something. Tell Rainbow I said hi.
I
No, that's
love
my
it.
friend. That's my friend Lulu, and she has a beautiful, beautiful black daughter. And actually, it, there's some. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead. I just had to
Hey,
say hi to
Lulu.
Lulu.
No, I love it. Love it. Well, and so that superpower about people, and it's sort of like the humanity, because part of what I was going to say is that when people see you in one way, even as a therapist, I think people expect that I don't experience anxiety, or that I don't, the idea of that was actually one of my patients calling me, but I apologize.
All
Just this
good.
idea of seeing me through this narrow, that I must be always calm, cool, and collected the way that I am. And it's sort of this intersectionality that we are not one thing. We're not one thing, right? So someone in the comments said that their therapy is running, and that's
Yeah,
one of those.
that's my man Bar.
Hey,
He
Bar,
be
it's
going
like
in
that.
on his gram. He does this thing called the sweat deck. I probably couldn't do one card on that thing. It's good, Bar. Anyway, go ahead.
But it's a process of sort of being connected to yourself. And so one of the things you said as we got disconnected was about self-esteem. And one of the things, it's like, what makes you feel good, right? There are a lot of people that need to, like, you need to know what is going to work for you. How's that going to help you feel, right?
Yeah.
Running doesn't work for me, neither does yoga, but punching stuff and knocking people, and like, I like it, right? Not to be minimized, but people have this idea that the one thing that we should be doing, go to therapy, go to yoga, you traveling. I mean, there's a big dent on that right now. You can't travel right now.
Thank God. Well, that's the thing. This is the healthiest. I mean, I have been so rested during this COVID thing, and I say that with a asterisk, because COVID has wreaked havoc across the world and on people. So that's forefront in my mind. But for myself, it's made me slow down, and look at. I just yeah, I haven't been this rested since I was living with my parents. Yeah.
But and this pause, that's why I've been calling it a pause. This pause has made me be reflective about the things I want to do. And people have, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. It was some of the best advice anybody gave, because I used to be a person that entertained oh yeah, somebody offers me, hey, would you want to, I could do that. And then now lately I've been like, I don't really want to do that. That's not going to leave me with the opportunity to do other things, right? So have you been more creative during this time?
Uh, same, same. Also the way my creativity works is as my man AJ calls us, I say late bloomer. AJ off the Jaffa says we're late. We're long distance runners. So like example, like one of my designs is like black Jesus with a cotton reef on his head, and it's white. It's black washed white Jesus. So it's white Jesus, white features, but the skin's brown, and he has a cotton reef on his head instead of a crown of thorns. I've had that idea and wanted to make a version of that for probably almost 20 years. So I was doing other work, working in retail, and then I'd say about 7 years ago, I started working as creative consultant, creative direction, making things, events, doing loads of stuff with my best friend A Side, working with basically working with Frank Ocean. I was more like his intern. I say creative consultant, but more like his intern. I learned more from him than he learned from me. But all the stuff working on my mentor Serge Becker, working with Kanye for 2 years. All this stuff is like this has all happened in the last 7 years of my life. And, working with ASAD, which is a privilege, working with the Astor, working with Tom Sachs, working with a bunch of different brands, Stussy, Nike, whatever, right? New Balance, blah, 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 blah. A lot of those ideas I employ in those situations is stuff I've been thinking about for 20 years because, I've been having my head in the books. I've been going to museums thanks to my parents since I was a little kid, and so I'm just getting I'm getting to express stuff that I've been thinking about and dreaming about, and dreams I never knew I had for about 20 years. And the last, I say, 7 years of my life, I've been able to start getting those ideas that have been in my head, ideas that have been keeping me awake, ideas I used to talk about with A-Side, talk about with my friend Ferris, talk about with my friend Nigel. Yeah, so for me, I'm just like, I just keep digging into the annals of my mind for the things that have been there. And then I keep developing and trying to read and learn more from books and people and places and things. And then, hopefully I have a long life, and then I get to employ some of the more recent things. But most of the time I'm just digging in my head that stuff that I've been obsessing over for a long time.
What I appreciate about what you're saying is that all of these collective experiences, like without one thing, you don't have the other thing. And I say this, my husband's a filmmaker, and so, he still to this day keeps all these storyboards. It's incredible of like cards and different. It feels so old fashioned because we have all these other ways of doing things.
Yeah.
It's this collective experiences of things. The other day he was downstairs watching Paper Moon, and like, it's a really old movie, and I was like, I know what he's working on right now, and I'm like, what the hell does this have to do?
Yeah.
But it's something that triggered in something that he worked on, right? That said, think about this sensibility. So those things that 20 years ago are coming into fruition. You're not a late bloomer. The universe is like allowing those experiences and those relationships to sort of provide you with this opportunity right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
100%. It's like Karate Kid when the kid can't understand why Mr. Miyagi got him washing the windows.
Yeah.
And then he realizes, oh, I'm learning how to do karate. So I think, like, I didn't understand why my mom and dad wanted me to read James Baldwin necessarily, or why they had it on the bookshelf. I didn't necessarily know why my dad would come in the bathroom and tell me that brushing your teeth is an art. Everything's an art. It was annoying. Even I remember we were on this trip in San Francisco, and my parents would save up money, and we go on a vacation once a year, every 2 years. And it was a big deal. My mom and dad really had to save so we could go hop on a plane and pay for a hotel for 5 nights, whatever. We're in a car. And I was just like, I was 16, kind of grumpy, like puberty, blah, blah, blah. And like always puffing my chest out to my dad. And my dad taking all these pictures in San Francisco, and like, I would get annoyed at it. And he pulled me to the side. He's like, you know what it took for us, me and your mom, to get you out here, this, then, the third. They're smiling these pictures. But the thing about it is, now all these thousands of pictures my dad took, I use them in my art. Every year I do a charity for Every Mother Counts. And I didn't make that charity, Christy Charlton did. And I do an event where I make a T-shirt with my late mother's picture on it, some quotes. T-shirt always sells out. I appreciate everyone that always buys a T-shirt. We sell my mom's recipe of red velvet cake that my little brother cooks. But the whole thing is, it seems like a new thing, but the red velvet cake is something my mom, she did that recipe years ago, special for me. A certain type of recipe. All those pictures my dad took, I'm employing them now. So, yeah, I just my creativity is like breed collage, it's a mix between the past and what's happening now, you know. And yeah, so as far as, you know, like projects of, you know, I've been fortunate to still be involved with or that are coming up during this like quarantine time. Is quarantine even still going on? Does COVID still exist? Uh,
Yeah.
is
Right.
COVID
Right.
still exist? No, it does. But yeah. So the creativity is like there as long as I get the opportunities, you know, and
But that's what's incredible around, you know, the backdrop of trauma, right? Because it's sort of like I had the privilege of having a conversation, an extensive conversation with you yesterday. It's sort of like all of these things are happening as we're simultaneously being traumatized and experiencing things. And even as you were talking about, we were sharing stories of things that happened to us as little, you know, with white people or different kinds of, it's sort of like none of that stopped the creation of the experiences and of the things.
well, that's the thing that we always have to remember, and I've been reminded of that. What's really gave me a bright light in this you know harrowing time is Dr. Cornel West. I watched a talk by him about his book, which I read a long time ago, Race Matters. And this is a 2019. He's giving a talk. The book's been around for like 20, 25 years. And he says, the human condition is constantly wrestling, and Black people and people of color are constantly wrestling with hope and despair. So hope's over here, despair's here, and they're constantly wrestling. And that's how everyone has to keep going. It's not about being, how are you going to be happy in this world all the time? There's vignettes of happiness, vignettes of fun, but
Hope and despair. That's our new love and hate with Radio Raheem. Hope.
yeah, you know, I really implore everyone to read.
He was my professor. Tremaine.
What?
He was my professor, and
I'm done. I'm out, y'all.
No, listen, and let me tell
See,
you.
that's what I'm talking about. Validation. I'm like, that's valid. That's validation to me. You tell me you learned of the Cornel West.
Yeah, and get this. When I listen to me, it
Wow.
was in Connecticut. Not really. Here's the thing. It was when he spoke. What blew my mind was there were a lot of words. I'm not ashamed to say this because I was 19 or 20, but I didn't. His vocabulary was so explosive.
Oh yeah, different.
Like, right. And then when I went after him, he said, "Sister, you know, he was so loving and kind." And talking about from a Christian perspective, one of the things he was talking about, it's interesting that you would talk about hope and despair, was that you had to keep on keeping on. And he was in the middle of these huge words that I was trying to process. He was talking about Public Enemy in the next breath, right? And what I appreciated was a man that could talk about Public Enemy and at the same time talk about Jesus and Peter and Paul and talk about the same thing about hope and despair, so that we don't lose this idea that in the midst of despair that we would have hope.
Yeah, because his thinking isn't dogmatic. His thinking isn't monolithic. It's like I can be into punk music and I can be into this and that, and it's just like it seems such a simple thing, but it's just like a lot of people are so, if you look at the world, a lot of people are monolithic. They are dogmatic, you know. Man, I'm so envious, and I rarely get envious that you got to, you met and went. I wish I could. There's some way I could just take a class, you know, of Cornel West and meet him. I never forget. I'll tell a little anecdote. I was working at Marc Jacobs in the West Village, and I was ringing up somebody working at the women's store, and I saw that afro in that black suit walking. He was walking fast too.
Yeah,
his hands was moving, and he was talking. And I'm like trying to finish up the sale. As soon as I finished with that sale, I hit the door. I didn't say nothing to the manager, nobody. I hit the door to run out, and I couldn't. That's one of the saddest moments of my life. I couldn't find him. I ran. I was a fool. I came back in the store huffing and puffing from running, trying to find Cornel West, man. I probably don't use my influence enough. I should try to find out a connection I want to meet him so bad. I really do.
So part of one of the things that so us even having a conversation now, you made me think about wanting to go grab a couple of books and share with my son, because I feel like it's an exploration around this idea of when things come into your life, right? He very often, because he's on the front lines around a lot of police brutality and brother sister from a Christian lens, but from this really, again, this intersectionality of all the things that we are. And like you said, it's not just one thing, because he loves music, he loves people, but exposure to that, and then us even having a conversation around talking about him will make people want to read him. The fact that you, Ta-Nehisi, right? So while I read The Case for Reparations in the Atlantic, I feel like I'm going to reread it today, and I hope that other people are going to reread it and think about that.
Yeah, and I feel like just what you're saying, but back on Cornel West and my dad, the two things I learned from my dad and Cornel West and my mom too is when Cornel West talks about Donald Trump, he still calls him brother. Why? Because Cornel West has love in his heart. So when you have love in your heart, even when you're facing your enemy, you admit that against them with your empirical facts on why they're your enemy and what they're doing wrong to you. And I think that's the key. And I'm not at that point. I'm trying to get to that point. And my dad always tells me, my mom and dad always told me, you can only have one thing in your heart. You can't have hate and love in your heart at the same time. And you know, I don't practice Christianity, but my parents did. And my dad said, regardless of what you believe, he's like, when Jesus was on the cross, and I do believe there's something to learn from that story, whether you believe or not, because I learned from it, even though I don't necessarily believe in organized religion. That Jesus is on the cross, and still all that came out of him was love. You know what I mean? And my dad's just like, you got to have love in your heart, because if you have hate in your heart, hate will come out of you when you are tested. If you have love in your heart, don't mean you're going to be weak, and when you test it, it doesn't mean that if someone punches you, you won't punch them back, and protect yourself. But you got to just have, and that's the same thing. Cornel West, when he's talking about white supremacists, he uses the word brother, you know what I mean? And he means it. And, you know, I think that's the love, really the love the Cornel West is at, and what my dad works on every day and what I try to work on every day. That's how you win. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean it's being kumbaya and like hippy dippy and like you're not fighting against your oppressor.
It's this evolution. One of the things that, in talking about humanity, one of the police officers, I believe he's Asian, from looking in this recent with Mr. Floyd, his peripheral connection, my heart beats for him, because I know that he knew he should do something, right? That and what does that feel like? And as we watched life sort of leave this person, this human that was there, he could have made a difference. And I think that's one of the things that Cornel West is saying, like, listen, you know, people make bad choices. I mean, so when you vilify, I'm going to make a bad choice, right? You're going to make a bad choice. We're not going to always make good choices. But this idea that we really can transcend, transform, move, shift, right? I don't know about power, as we were talking, you know, earlier. If we have a place of love, maybe we can shift and move. But people don't want to lose, right? How do we move from the idea that people lose in order for other people to win? That's the love that you're talking about, that Cornel West is able to say, brothers in blue, like he would say if he were here, my brothers in blue have got to do what's right? And he would say it more eloquently, but he's really speaking to your heart, right? And that's something we talk about in therapy a lot, that I don't need to have smoked crack and lost my whole family to arson to be able to feel for that person, right? I don't need that exact experience, but I do need to know what it feels like to be lonely or sad, you know, to feel that loss, that pain. And so many of us have that. right? Where is the pain?
No, 100%. We do have it. Again, like I'm gonna tell you, I'm just like I delegate to Cornel West when I'm talking about all this stuff. Like I'll post it today on my gram. This new thing I started doing is like it's not new. Other artists have probably done it, but I've been doing this thing with my friend James Corrigan. I record all these sound snippets from interviews and like cartoons and stuff, and then we put them together and we create like a sound collage. So there's one I recorded, but I didn't use it in the last one. And Cornel West said all white people should clap for black people when they see them because all we've been through, and we haven't burnt this country to the ground. You know what I mean? We're still out here with love. We're still making beautiful art, just being beautiful people, whether it's James Brown in Augusta, Georgia performing, or my grandmother in Augusta, Georgia cleaning a white woman's house and doing her best job after all my grandmother been through and all James Brown been through. He's like, you should clap for black people. So obviously us as a culture, we have that love. We got that love. We got all that love in us after all we've been through. And I hope white people can look at that and match that love that we got, And I think all subjugated people have that love in their heart, because you can't, or you will cease to exist. Women have that love in their heart. All they've been through with dealing with patriarchy, Chinese people, every person of color has that love in their heart, and that's what white men need. They don't have that. They don't have that love in their heart. They don't.
So, and what's the hard part is then for people then to see us as magical or see us in a different way. And so it's like, but we still have pain, but there's a resilience. And I'm going to hold you to this idea of hope and despair, because simultaneously, and I think a lot about slaves, and I also feel in our DNA, we carry that. And I think about, we got married, I jumped the broom. And more of the symbolism that there was always still joy. If they didn't have anything, I'm going to eat cornbread and we're going to use the scraps and we're going to, I saw Ta-Nehisi at the Apollo in October, and he was talking about it in his new book, just this idea that we were always these layered people, that we're going to make a delicacy. Like we're going to have no scraps and we're going to create quilts, right? We're going to, people are like, we didn't give you shit. How did this happen? And so it speaks a lot to the beauty of a people, the essence of a people, and the idea of them clapping. It's sort of like, it's not validation, but it's sort of like recognizing that like this thing could have been very different.
Yeah, man, it can be so different. Listen, one of the things that came up in my conversation with my dad last night, he's like, you guys are finally seeing what we were going through in the 60s now, blah, blah, blah. And I said, Dad, you know what's amazing about you and Mom? You guys brainwashed me not to hate white people. Even though all you've been through, all the people, KKK walking through Harlem, Georgia, the story I told on the podcast I did with Arthur Jaffa and A-Side about the police sheriff who beat a black man within an inch of his life with a flashlight because he overtook a white family in a car, and how could you do that? All the stories my parents seen, all the stuff my dad and my mom been through, they told me never hate white people, judge each one individually. That's why black people do not need to look to fashion brands or getting accepted in Hollywood or getting accepted in anywhere. We got it in us already. The beauty's, you gotta look in the mirror, look in the internal, look what we've been through. Look what we've been through. We don't spend enough time looking what we've been through, because a lot of people are scared to look at what we've been through because it hurts. But like I said, there's hope within that despair. Mm-hmm. There's hope within that despair. So it's like, I got this book called Without Sanctuary, which is about pictures of black folk being hung. And someone would say, that's a horrible book to have. Like, how can you look at these pictures? But to me, I get power from those pictures. Yeah. I get power that dude that got hung had a family and they kept going. It kept going. That's power to me. You know what I mean? That to me, that is like, that is power to keep going through the pain. That's true. That's true. That's true power. And that's why, so I inundate myself with all those images and stuff and stories, because I have not, I've lived a different Black experience than my father and my grandfather and my great great grandfather and my grandmothers, you know, and then the slaves. So I need to keep reading about slavery. I need to keep watching the documentaries. I need to keep seeing the pictures of them hung. You know, it's like
Yeah,
Catholic Church. Why do they got Jesus in the church? So you don't forget the sacrifice.
it's true.
So
Specifically
you
in the
look in there and you see him on the cross and you see the blood coming out and his head to the side. So you don't forget the sacrifice, if you believe in that. My Jesus is my mom and all her ancestors. That's my Jesus. Is every Black person. That's the crucifixion. Every Black person that's been hung, every Black person that's got whipped. George Floyd is Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? Amadou Diallo is Jesus Christ. Abner
yeah.
Lalima is Jesus Christ. I don't care what they, and that's another thing too. People gotta stop saying, "Oh, Ahmad was a good kid." I don't care if Ahmad was selling crack and was a domestic abuser and a pornographer, whatever. I don't care what he was doing. He still should be able to run, take a jog, and not get killed by ex-cop or anybody.
That's
It
right.
don't matter how good or bad the Black person was that's been killed. We don't need to permeate that, oh, they were a good person that get killed. I don't care if they're a good person or not, because
But that's
that don't stop you from getting killed. So we don't even need to talk about that. It don't
no, and
stop you from getting.
that's some of our internalized. We one of the other things that we haven't tapped too much on. We talked a little bit about Black on Black crime, but internalized racism is when people say things like, "Well, what were you wearing?" Or right, somebody saying to my son, "Don't go down there with an all black hood. Don't put that Huey Newton T-shirt on." Right, this idea of us expressing ourselves in certain ways that if we package ourselves, if my hair is straight European, or if I do certain things, that we will be accepted, right? And so that's really something that even sometimes Black people are the gatekeepers around, right? So people like you or me, who gets to speak, or how do we decide? That self-esteem and the love that you're talking about, once we get that in people, I have those totems in my house for my sons to see,
Yeah,
Rosa Parks. They need to be able to see the art that we have, our original art by Black people, because they're going to be exposed to other art in other places, in school, and all these other places. I want them to see how art is created, or how interpretations or images, because I don't have any fear that they're not going to get exposure to like, you know what I mean, any of the artists, the masters, but they may not know, you know what I mean, who other people are.
no, 100%. And that's what I'm trying to say is like the internal racism and the internal problems of Black community is the fetishization of Western culture. So it's like, yeah, David Hammons is cool, but Picasso, what? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, love them both, but definitely love David Hammons or Kara Walker. You know what I mean? It's like this, you know, Monet and the Masters and the Grand Masters. You know, like when you go to Frieze Art Fair, there's the Masters room. It's all white fucking art. It's like, come on, man. And it's like Black people, we got to get off that trip, man. And white people need to get off that trip too of like their culture is the highest thing. It's all relevant. You know what I mean? What about, you know, Chinese art, Japanese art? You know, why is it Japanese, Native American? This is indigenous art. That's a whole nother realm, you know? And
Yeah.
I give you this perfect example. If A-Side's still on, I'm going to tell this story. A-Side was like, he went to this like furniture fair, right? And he runs into this dude. And this dude has some African mask and stuff like that. He's like, yo, I got more stuff at the crib. So A-Side's like, yo, Tremaine, come with me to this dude who got crib. It's a white dude. He's got all this African furniture, art, and stuff like that. I said, cool. So we pull up to the crib, and the guy's got on these dope moccasins. And I said, yo, where are those from? He's like, oh, they're Japanese. I get pairs whenever I go to Japan. I'm like, oh, dope, kind of fresh, dude. Then I go, how often do you go to Africa? He goes, oh, I never been. I look at A-Side. He said, oh, yeah, Africa's too dangerous. I
Wow.
sent someone else to get all these artifacts and stuff. And it was just like, and you go in there and they're selling all this stuff. And the kicker is, I said to him, we're asking prices and stuff. And I said, we're talking about the stuff. He said, the best stuff. Asked him what price. He's like, oh, you know, stuff goes up to this price. All the best stuff's in museums. They got all the good stuff. All the best stuff's in museums, which are 100% all owned by Western white people, white men. So that's the micro from macro for fucking everything. So this guy's selling 2 black guys African art and sculptures. He's never stepped foot in Africa because he's scared to go. So why are you selling something you're scared to go? You're scared to go there, but you sell the stuff. And you selling the stuff, you're probably paying nothing for it. And then you got bold-facedly can tell me, oh, but the really, really good stuff, it's in the museums already. That's all you need to know about everything that's going on and about how white people treat us and then how internally we treat ourselves, you know what I mean? And it's just like, because we have black people collectively have Stockholm syndrome. Africa too, they got it too, and that has to get broken.
We are changing things though, right? I got to tell you, even when you're in that article, and again, I just read it, I'm just going to show it again. In your article with Ebony, one of the things that she talked about was when she was going to be bringing people to Africa, it was so that they could come back. And she talks about the kindergarten teacher. See, because while I believe in movements, it really does happen in these small revolutions, like it'll be right. And so when you had that conversation, there were people, and you talk about that story about your father going to Africa and people having this idea around it, around what it was going to look like. There were people, because we're so limited, I think that you understand that there are people who haven't left Brooklyn, who barely, right? And so the image of Africa is still as a dark and scary, it's scary for people.
Yeah, but also, I'm happy you bring that up. So 2 things. One, revolutions, people should read up on Fidel Castro. Whether you agree with Fidel Castro and Che Guevara and those guys, they started the Cuban Revolution, I think, with 33 people. They got off a boat from Miami with 33 people and then grew it from that. Anything's possible. So that's just that. But as far as I keep seeing people go, black people, particularly African black people, like, y'all should just move back to Africa. So 30 million plane tickets? That's what we're talking about. 30 million plane tickets.
Right.
30 million plane tickets back to Africa. And where are we pulling up? Y'all got enough hospitals? Y'all got enough hospitals, healthcare, and schools to facilitate 30 million black people that are going to need to, but black people do this thing themselves, these simple solutions where it's like, it ain't a quick fix. And we keep putting it on us. It's a mixture of us changing and the power structure, because guess what? Africa, the deal that God bless Nelson Mandela, but the deal that he had to do to free Africa from apartheid has enslaved South Africa in another way.
Yeah, and I'm going to just stop you for 1 second. The one thing that's important, my grandfather used to say, this is ours. This is the blood, soil, right? And whether Native American, I apologize, all of our people have toiled this land. We don't have to walk away, right? But it's this idea that we have options, Yeah.
And so, it just can't be blanket statements. So the blanket statement is, yes, we can go back to Africa, but where's the land in Africa we're going to go to? As my man Asad, he really laid it out. He's like, you need to have schools, hospitals, agriculture. So we can do that, but it's got to be so laid out, and it can't just be us yelling, barking, oh, just come back here. It ain't that simple. Because when the Jews went to Israel, it wasn't like they were like, let's just go to Israel. There was laws passed. The UK passed laws. There was help. There was hospitals and things set up. It was a systematic thing done. It wasn't just a slogan and just saying, blacks, come back to Africa. It was a whole set of things that get done. And that's what it is. And it just can't be like holding a sign and like throwing things out there, you know? And again, too, it's like we have a choice. We built this country. So when you think about it, 400 years is a blink in an eye in human existence. Yeah. If you read the book Sapiens, or if you just do any knowledge, how long Homo sapiens, which we are, Homo sapiens have been on Earth to the 400 years of purgatory that black people have been in America, it's a blink. So maybe this is like 500 years from now, things will be totally flipped or set right. But I don't
that's
know,
a long time. We won't see that.
And that's the thing about compassion. Do you have compassion about the generation that you'll never be able to shake hands with? Do you have compassion about what they will have? Do you see your existence as your 70 years on Earth, or you see your existence as the things you do and then it permeates? My mom been dead for 5 years, but her existence still permeates through me. And not just on some like, because I love my mom, actual things she did that I pass on to myself, to my family, and to people. You know, she permeates. Every dollar that gets donated to women through Every Mother Counts, my mom is helping do those dollars because she raised me, and her final lesson and her death propelled me to start actually finally getting involved in charity and stuff like that, you know? And so she permeates beyond her death, you know? Humans are more than flesh.
But that's our legacy, even as we were talking about what was passed down in DNA about ancestors. So whenever I start thinking about something that's overwhelming that I can't do, sounds bizarre, but I really do think there was never a slave that said, right, that there was not an option. So it's like, the shit I'm talking about is not nearly as difficult, right? But that's in my DNA, and that's the legacy. So as we move forward in generations, and you talk about your mom, she's still alive, and the same thing with my mom. And I think about what some of the things that my mother gave to me around mental health, and how as a family we came into it, right? I had an uncle who was a schizophrenic, brilliant, went to Cooper Union, all the, Exeter, very brilliant man.
Wow.
But schizophrenic. And at the time, what people did was electroshock therapy, because that was what people did. But it really damaged him, even though that's come around. But what I want to say to people is you can get help, right? And whether there are all forms of things, because we're afraid of things. But my DNA, my legacy is around not suffering in silence, around having conversations.
Yeah.
Your mom, when you said at 58 that she hadn't left, but she made it possible for you to leave, right? Now,
yeah.
So that story stuck in with me, right? Our connection around that story. Yeah. And then thinking to people, get your passport, see something, right?
Yeah.
If you can spend $300, $400 on sneakers, $2,000 on a bag, you could go to Paris if you wanted to.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like, I'm not saying me and Asad are perfect and we're the example for every young Black person. But I tell you what, we wasn't always in the $10,000 watch club. There was times where, me and Asad was flying to LA to do gigs and play a violin for us. But we flew coach and we making phone calls trying to extend our hotel room and trying the cards. But yeah, we chose to spend our money on that other than just trying to keep up with the Joneses. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. So it's like, that's the thing. It's like, you got what we're going through as a, dealing with white supremacy, but you got to meet it halfway. Rosa Parks was like, okay, there's white supremacy, but I'm gonna go to the front of the bus. That's hoping she got up and did something. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, whatever challenges me and ASI were going through at that time, we still were like, we're gonna make it happen with this. You know, like I remember trips 6, 7 years to LA trying to make it happen in the careers we work in. I probably had $2,000 to my name, $1,000 to my name, sweating bullets waiting for that invoice. ASI hitting me, yo, when's that invoice coming through? Mm-hmm. So that has to be applied to everything, you know, and what are you willing to sacrifice? You know?
But all of these
you can't be cozy, necessarily be cozy and get change. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you've got to understand about what you really want. And again, in thinking about shifts and thinking about how it all comes together though, right? So your mom planted the seed, all these seeds that have been planted, I'm sure that not that we're so amazing, but some of the conversations we're having are going to make people think about and look at different things. And that frame of reference in terms of exposure is going to really build, right? Individuals are going to then maybe have other conversations and say, yeah, you know, I want to see something for myself and do something different. Because even just in you talking about your friendship, and again, there's lots of times that this didn't seem like this was going to be where you are now, right? In terms of the exposure and projects that you've been, you know, involved in.
Yeah, I mean, A-Side, Polino, and, you know, shout out to the owners of Human Shift and Prevent, you know, A-Side's one of my main, you know, there's this thing called the hero's journey, and you leave your place of, you leave your home and you go out into the world, and it's on you to find mentors. And I've had several, you know, Ferris Bueller, A-Side, Hadara, Robert Duffy, Serge Becker, and A-Side's one of my mentors that I learned a lot from. And the main thing he taught me was he had a cozy corporate job, and he quit it to go make an album that sold nothing. It's a great album. You should listen to it. We Are Shining. But
I'm writing it down. We Are Shining?
Yeah, that's the name of the group. And that gave me energy, because I was like, this dude turned his back on his job to go find what makes him happy, which was making music, because he, you know, and that's the thing is, he stopped being cozy in this way to feed the internal, instead of being like, well, damn, there goes the business class flights, and there goes the however many K salary. And, you know, it sounds hokey, but it's real. And I learned a lot from that. I learned a lot, like, you know, and when my time came, I did a similar, and I did it with him. You know, we went all out just for what we wanted to do. No rope, you know, just like went for it. But I learned, you know, that's one of the most valuable lessons I've learned in my life. Is just like, you can leave your accoutrements and your golden handcuffs, you know. And I see my man Angelo from he has the brand Awake, and he has an agency. He had a really cushy job, 6-figure job, and he left it to go and have a company that he has his own equity in, that he owns, that he can put on artists he wants to put on, and so on and so forth. And, you know, Shaniqua Jarvis, I've seen her do it, you know, Black, you know, I think she's like the first Black art show I've gone to of a Black person I know personally was in London back in 2011 or 12. This charming man exhibition, and me and A-Side talked about her extensively. The inspiration we got from Shaniqua, her coming to London, being American, being a Black woman, and putting on an art show in East London, and it being on that level, and her pushing it to where she's at right now. To you know, to when I was gonna book her for my Levi's campaign, it was expensive, and that made me so happy. That when her agent was like, "This is how much it cost to book Shaniqua," I was like, "This is amazing," because I remember when she ain't had it like that.
Right.
And for Shaniqua, Black woman, to get to that point where she's can make a living off of taking pictures, you know, name you know, somebody in the comments, name 5 or 10 Black female photographers now. You can't do it. You can't do it that you know of, but you know of Irvin Penn, you know of this one, you know of that one, you know what I mean? So you know Susan Sontag, you know Annie Leibovitz. Name 5, 10 Black female photographers. So that's all those. Shaniqua's one of my mentors too. That's where I get my energy from. People who make that sacrifice to go further, you know. And they all these people I mentioned, you know, Shaniqua, Angela, ASAP, they turned their back on the golden handcuffs of just having a 9 to 5, having a 401k, and went for something to do work on things that they have equity in. And that's the key thing is people of color and women building and working on things that you have equity in. That's how you build a system within the capitalist system, having equity in things, having a diversified portfolio of businesses and real estate and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And that's something that's not taught.
I do. We only have 5 minutes. And I don't want to get cut off again.
Okay.
I just want to thank you and just this opportunity, not only to share, you exposed me to names and talked about some people that I hadn't thought about or hadn't heard of. And it is,
you studied under Cornel West. You won. Yeah.
But it's different, right? It's different, and I have to tell you about this thing about celebrity. It's sort of interesting because, or any of it, right? What we are exposed to, it's like we're drawn to these things. Like, you know what I mean? The fact I wouldn't know that you would. Sometimes people have this idea. It's like, but all of it serves a purpose. All of it serves a purpose, right? That we. Again, and it's not that we're a chosen few. We're all possible. I'm looking at, there's a woman on here who was a therapist, Debbie Lorenzo. She makes these incredible hats. And Naomi Campbell wore her hat. And like, I wanted to cry because I thought about, you know, when she was first taking measurements for hats. And it's a testament to her grandmother. But these are high fashion, like amazing. But it's sort of like somebody she had to believe in herself. And I think about all of these ways, right? Somebody believed in Virgil, whatever the story. I don't even know his whole story. I know that, like, it makes me feel good because I'm like, that could be my son, my brother, my nephew, you know? And so when they see these, and we have these stories, and magazines like Human Shift say, this is my cover. This Black woman's story about her hair, and this model is saying, I'm not just a model, I'm way more than that, I'm an ambassador. So you're not just an artist. We're asked to be more than one thing, right? Cornel said, be a humanist. He's always talking about humanity, right? That sits with me because, you know, whatever we decide, your mom is so proud. I never even heard of that. I know who Christy Turlington is, but every mom counts. That's what it is. Yeah,
every mother counts. Yeah, it's good charity.
If nothing else, you're telling me about other people doing things that count and matter. Shaniqua, I don't know her, but I want to know who she is.
Yeah, Shaniqua Jarvis, she's amazing.
Yeah,
she's amazing. That's my big sister I never had. Yeah, I mean, and that's the main thing is, you know, humanity. How much humanity do you have? What's the maximum amount of humanity you can have by the time you die? Because this society, capitalistic society, tries to strip it away from you. So that's the whole thing. Like, what level of humanity can you have by the time you die? You know, my mom had a high level. I'm trying to get to that point.
Peace, brother. Thank you so much.
Love. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, Paulina. Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.